"Can I check your ticket, please?" I handed over the ticket I'd been nervously twirling for the past hour. The attendant's smile was too bright, her eyes fixed on me a beat too long. She nodded, slipped a folded paper into my ticket, and said warmly, "Have a nice flight." Her tone was rehearsed, her grin stretched too wide. I returned a polite smile, walked down the aisle, and found my seat near the middle row. Once seated, I unfolded the mysterious sheet tucked inside. The handwriting was hurried, jagged, as though scribbled in fear. At the top, scrawled in uneven letters, rules for surviving this flight. My pulse skipped. The first line froze me. "You are the only human on this flight." I stared at the page again, fighting a laugh, convinced it was a prank. Yet some instinct whispered otherwise. Still, I decided to humor the rules. I checked my phone. The time glared back, 7:13 a.m. The rules began to sink in. During the first hour of the flight, do not talk to anyone. I snorted under my breath. What kind of twisted airline game was this? Passengers around me shuffled into seats, chatting, yawning, scrolling on their phones. Nothing strange. Then the seat beside me creaked. A young man with a laptop bag sat down. His posture was stiff, his eyes avoiding me entirely. Good, I thought. He's one of those quiet types. The engines roared to life. The captain's voice filled the cabin, calm and steady. "Ladies and gentlemen, prepare for takeoff." The plane surged forward. The G-force pressed me into my seat as the ground fell away. Flying usually made me anxious, but this time felt different. My stomach twisted, sweat dampened my forehead. Something deep inside whispered danger. Grave danger. I clutched the rules tighter, trying to ignore the gnawing dread. The young man tapped my shoulder suddenly. A chill shot through me. Even through my jacket, his hand felt icy, heavy, unnatural, like the hand of the dead. I turned slowly. His face looked off. Not grotesque, but subtly wrong, as if carved by someone who had studied humans but never truly been one. Eyes too large, pupils too wide. Nose slightly off-center, mouth stretched thin, unnaturally long. It was the uncanny valley made flesh. But then he spoke. His voice was perfectly ordinary. With that sound, his face seemed to settle into something normal. "Hey," he asked casually, "do you wear headphones?" I blinked. Weird question. Before I could answer, he leaned closer. "How would you feel if I cut your hand off right now?" He asked it the same way someone might ask the time, calm, almost friendly. My throat closed. My grip tightened on the rules. The first rule screamed in my mind, "Do not talk to anyone." So I ignored him. I fixed my gaze on the seat in front of me, my breath shaky. The man paused. Then, without another word, he pulled out his laptop. The glow of the screen lit his face in eerie blue. Curiosity got the better of me. I glanced over. My stomach flipped. His screen showed a single photo of me. Not just me now. Me, sitting in this very seat, this very moment. No background, just me. I looked closer. The keyboard wasn't normal. The keys were misshapen, etched with strange symbols that didn't belong to any language I knew. The man stared at my image as though studying prey. My skin prickled. I fought the urge to scream. Then suddenly a voice broke the silence. "Sir, is this man bothering you?" A flight attendant stood over me, smiling politely. Relief surged through me. "Yes, he—" I began, but the words died in my throat, because in that instant the entire cabin moved as one. Dozens of heads snapped toward me, necks turning too fast, too sharp. Every passenger stared directly into my eyes. My blood turned to ice. Their faces. Wrong. All of them. Their skin seemed stretched too tight, their lips thin and long, their eyes too wide. And then, as though rehearsed, every mouth pulled into the same grotesque grin. Thin lips curled higher, exposing teeth that didn't look human. From the corners of their eyes, thick red tears began to roll down. A quiet sound filled the cabin. Not laughter, not weeping, something in between. the kind of sound that makes your bones ache. I froze, clutching the list in trembling hands, and in that moment I understood. This wasn't a prank. The rules were real. I couldn't breathe. Every pair of eyes in that cabin burned holes into me. The man beside me grinned wider than the rest, his teeth sharp, his pupils blown wide like black pits. The flight attendant didn't blink. Her smile stayed frozen as though carved into her face. I squeezed the paper in my hand so tight it crumpled. Don't talk. Don't talk. The first hour wasn't over yet. My phone read 7:28 a.m. Time crawled. The inhuman passengers kept staring, their lips twitching like they were holding back some unholy laughter. Then, as suddenly as it started, they turned back, all at once. The attendant nodded, calm again, and walked away. The young man returned to staring at his screen. Only I was left trembling, heart hammering against my ribs. This flight was a trap, and I had stepped right into it. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to calm my breathing, but the hum of the engines felt louder now, vibrating into my bones. I dared to glance at my phone again. 41 a.m. 19 minutes to survive before I could speak again. 19 minutes of silence. The young man typed something into his strange keyboard. Symbols flickered across his screen. My photo shifted, now showing me wide-eyed, terrified, exactly as I sat in real time. He was watching me through it, recording me, studying me. I clenched my fists, forcing myself not to react. The air in the cabin thickened, pressing on my chest. No one else moved, no coughs, no murmurs, nothing but the drone of engines. It was unbearable. I glanced up at the ceiling lights. They flickered once, then again. Something was coming. At 7:52 a.m., the silence shattered. A child began to cry. Not a normal cry. The sound pierced the air, jagged and sharp, echoing unnaturally loud in the small cabin. The rules flashed through my mind. If you hear a child crying in the cabin, immediately run to the bathroom. I jolted up so fast my seatbelt snapped loose. The man beside me turned, grinning. The rest of the passengers were still frozen, unmoving. But the crying grew louder, closer, impossible to pinpoint. I pushed into the aisle, nearly tripping over my bag. Rows of passengers stared ahead, lips still curved in their grotesque smiles. The crying turned into a scream, a raw, inhuman shriek. I stumbled down the aisle, heart pounding, eyes scanning desperately. There, bathroom door near the rear. I slammed inside and locked it shut. My hands shook uncontrollably. The crying cut off instantly. The bathroom light buzzed overhead. I pressed my back to the door, chest heaving. My reflection in the mirror looked pale, drenched in sweat, eyes wide with terror. I turned the faucet on, just to drown out the silence. Cold water splashed over my trembling hands. Then, a knock. 3 slow, deliberate taps on the bathroom door. "Sir," a woman's voice called sweetly. "Everything okay in there?" The voice was wrong, too calm, too measured. I stayed silent. Another knock, harder this time. "Please return to your seat." I squeezed my eyes shut, clutching the crumpled rules. The paper smelled faintly metallic, like blood. The knocking stopped. Silence stretched. Then a hiss. A whisper through the crack of the door. "You can't hide forever." My heart nearly burst from my chest. I dared glance at my phone. 8:04 a.m. The first hour was finally over. The rules said I could talk now, but that thought didn't comfort me at all. I cracked the bathroom door and peeked out. The aisle looked empty. Passengers sat stiffly, eyes forward as though nothing had happened. The crying child had vanished. I slipped back into my seat, pulse racing. The man with the laptop was gone. I almost felt relieved, until I noticed the screen still glowing on his abandoned seat. It showed me. But this time, the image was wrong. Not real time. The picture showed me with blood on my face, mouth open in a silent scream. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sand. The overhead speaker crackled. The captain's voice cut through. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second hour of your flight. The note's warning slammed into me. During the second hour, if anyone mentions the window, do not look outside under any circumstances. The captain's voice faded, leaving a tense silence behind. I shifted in my seat, clutching the rules like a lifeline. The words, "Do not look outside the window," burned in my brain. I glanced at my phone. The second hour had begun. The man's laptop still glowed with my distorted image, the bloodied version of me that hadn't yet happened. My stomach twisted. Then, the passenger across the aisle leaned toward me. A woman in a red scarf, her smile too wide. "You should see the view," she whispered, voice low but urgent. Every nerve in my body screamed, "Don't." I forced myself to stare straight ahead. Her eyes narrowed. "You'll regret not looking." Her tone was venomous, mocking. I dug my nails into my palm, fighting the urge. The rules were clear. I could not look. The woman kept whispering. "The clouds are glowing. They're not like anything you've ever seen." Her words slithered into my ears, painting images I desperately tried to push away. More passengers began turning their heads toward me, each one smiling, their eyes gleaming. "You'll want to see it," a man behind me hissed. "It's beautiful." Their voices blended together, a chorus of temptation, soft and persuasive. The windows shimmered faintly, light spilling through, brighter than sunlight. I clenched my fists tighter. The rules were the only thing keeping me alive. I fixed my gaze on the seat in front of me, jaw locked. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, more hostile. Then, a sudden bang against the window beside me. The glass rattled. A shape pressed against it, just out of sight. My heart thundered. I couldn't look. I wouldn't. The banging continued, something or someone scraping at the window with long, jagged fingers. The passengers whispered faster now. "Look, look, look!" I pressed my hands to my ears. The rules had to be right. They had to be. The light outside flickered like lightning, pulsing across the cabin. Shadows stretched unnaturally, crawling along the ceiling. The woman in the red scarf leaned so close her breath brushed my ear. "They're already here." Her words curdled my blood. The glass beside me groaned under the pressure, cracks spiderwebbed across its surface. The whispers stopped all at once. Silence. I peeked at my phone, 8:36 a.m. The second hour wasn't over yet. But the window was breaking. I gripped the armrest until my knuckles ached. If the glass shattered, I didn't know what would happen, but I knew one thing. I could not look. The crack in the glass stretched wider. A faint hiss of air seeped through, chilling my skin. My chest tightened, panic clawing at me. The passengers smiled wider, unblinking, as though waiting for me to fail. I shut my eyes. Seconds felt like hours. Then, just as suddenly, the pressure stopped. The rattling ceased. The hiss vanished. When I opened my eyes, the window was whole again, perfectly intact, as if nothing had happened. But the passengers, their grins faded. One by one, they turned away, back to their rigid silence. The woman in the red scarf leaned back, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Her expression smoothed into blankness. My phone buzzed faintly. 59 a.m. One more minute. I held my breath, counting down in my head. Then the intercom clicked on. The captain's voice returned. "Attention passengers, it's time." The third hour. The rules came flooding back. During the third hour, the captain will make an announcement, follow the instructions. My stomach dropped. The captain's voice was calm, almost soothing. "Passengers, please fasten your seatbelts, remain still, and keep your eyes forward." Everyone obeyed instantly. Every figure around me snapped their belts shut in perfect unison. I hesitated, my fingers trembling as I reached for mine. The captain's voice deepened. Do not resist what comes next. Accept it. The cabin lights dimmed until only a dull red glow remained. The hum of the engines shifted, turning into something lower, more guttural, like the growl of a beast. Shadows lengthened along the walls, curling toward the center aisle. Something unseen was moving, closer. The air turned icy, my breath fogging in front of me. The intercom crackled once more, and the captain whispered, "Do not look behind you." Every muscle in my body locked. The captain's words echoed in my skull. Do not look behind you. The urge was overwhelming. Something was there. I could feel it. The cold pressed against the back of my neck, heavy and suffocating. My heart pounded so hard I thought the thing behind me could hear it. The passengers stayed perfectly still, eyes forward, faces blank. No one dared move. No one dared breathe. The growl of the engines deepened, vibrating through the floor, rattling the seats. I gripped the crumpled rules so tight my fingers ached. Sweat rolled down my temple, freezing as it touched my skin. The shadow stretched further down the aisle, thick and writhing. A whisper brushed my ear. Turn around. I clenched my jaw, fighting the instinct. Seconds felt like an eternity. Then finally the intercom crackled. "Thank you for complying," the captain said. The cabin lights flickered back to white. The shadows vanished. The oppressive weight lifted, leaving me gasping for air. Passengers shifted slightly, but still no one spoke. The atmosphere hadn't softened. It had only reset. I checked my phone, 9:21 a.m. The third hour still wasn't finished. My nerves frayed with every passing second. Then, out of nowhere, a flight attendant walked down the aisle. Her smile was frozen in place. She stopped at my row and leaned toward me. "Sir, the captain requests your presence in the cockpit." My stomach sank. The rules only said to follow the captain's instructions. Nothing about leaving my seat. Still, I nodded weakly and stood. Every passenger's head turned to follow me, their unblinking stares burning holes in my back. The attendant guided me forward step by step until we reached the cockpit door. It clicked open on its own. The cockpit was dark. Dim red lights glowed faintly across the panels. The air smelled like burnt metal, acrid and suffocating. Two figures sat in the pilot's chairs. But they weren't human. Their bodies were twisted, elongated, faces obscured by shadows. Their hands moved over the controls, fingers longer than they should be. One of them turned its head toward me. Its face was smooth, featureless, just skin stretched over a skull. A hole opened where the mouth should be, dripping with black fluid. "Sit," it commanded, the voice rumbling like static. A chair slid out from the wall, waiting. My hands trembled as I lowered myself into it. The second figure leaned closer. "Obey, and you might live." The rules in my pocket felt heavier than ever. Whatever this was, it wasn't a flight anymore. It was something else. Something I wasn't meant to survive. The faceless pilot reached toward me. Its hand hovered above my head, fingers twitching like antennae. Cold static crackled against my skin. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The second pilot's voice filled the cockpit, hollow and deep. "You are the anomaly." The words rattled through my bones. "You are not supposed to be here." The chair vibrated beneath me, restraints snapping across my arms and legs. Panels on the wall flickered to life, showing distorted images, passengers grinning. The man with the laptop. My own face, bleeding, screaming, always bleeding. The faceless pilot pressed its palm against my skull. Images flooded my mind. Black voids, endless screaming, hands pulling me down into the dark. I thrashed, but the restraints held. And then, just as quickly, it pulled away. The voice returned. "Return to your seat. The fourth hour awaits." The cockpit door clicked open again. I stumbled back into the aisle, weak, drenched in sweat. The passengers were still there, staring blankly forward. Not one of them had moved. The attendant who had guided me was gone. I dragged myself back to my seat, clutching the rules. My phone read 9:59 a.m. The second hand ticked slowly. The third hour was almost over. Then the intercom flared again. The captain's voice, distorted now, breaking into static. "Prepare yourselves. The fourth hour begins." The rules screamed in my memory. During the fourth hour, do not sit in your seat. I shot up instantly, heart pounding. If I sat, if I stayed still, something terrible would happen. But where could I go? Every passenger turned to face me, smiling again, their mouths stretching impossibly wide, and all at once they whispered together, "Stand or die." I shot into the aisle, legs shaking. The moment I stood, the whispers stopped. The passengers turned forward again, as if nothing had happened. I clutched the seat backs for balance, glancing at my phone, 10:04 a.m. Just 4 minutes into the fourth hour. How long could I last like this? The plane's hum deepened, shaking the floor. Overhead bins rattled violently, as though something inside was clawing to escape. A passenger in the far row stood suddenly. His head twisted too far, bones cracking until his face was staring backward. His voice carried across the cabin. "Sit down." My throat dried instantly. The rules rang louder in my mind. Do not sit. I gripped the nearest seat tighter. The man's grin split wider, red lines trickling from his eyes. "Sit, or we'll make you." The air thickened, pressing against me from every direction. My legs trembled as I forced myself down the aisle, away from my row. Every step felt like wading through invisible chains. Passengers whispered again, their voices overlapping. "Sit down, sit down, sit down." The words clawed at my brain. The man with the backward head lurched into the aisle. His limbs bent the wrong way, his grin stretching ear to ear. I staggered backward, my spine pressed to the wall. Then, his body snapped forward, sprinting toward me in jerks and spasms. I bolted. My legs carried me past row after row, the whispers rising into shrieks. Hands reached out, clawing at me from both sides. I shoved past them, nearly tripping. My phone buzzed. 19 a.m. 41 minutes left in the fourth hour. How could I possibly survive? I stumbled toward the back of the plane, gasping for air. The bathroom door loomed ahead, but I didn't dare stop. The rules hadn't said anything about hiding this time. I pressed forward until I reached the galley. Empty. Metal carts stood abandoned, wheels locked, trays scattered across the floor. The overhead light flickered, dimming to a bloody red glow. Behind me, footsteps dragged closer, slow, deliberate. I spun around. The backward-headed man stood at the end of the aisle. He tilted unnaturally, his grin splitting wider, wider, until it nearly tore his face in two. Then he whispered in a voice that wasn't his. "The chaser is coming." The words froze me in place. The rules. After the fourth hour, you must evade the chaser. You'll know who it is when you see them. And with those words, I understood. He wasn't the chaser. The red light deepened until the cabin was drenched in crimson. Every passenger rose to their feet at once. Their movements were stiff, puppet-like, as though strings held their limbs. The backward-headed man pointed at me, and all of them began to advance. My lungs burned as I bolted toward the front of the plane. Their footsteps thundered in unison, echoing like a single monstrous being. Hands scraped across the walls, the ceiling, the seats. They were hurting me, driving me somewhere. The intercom crackled above. The captain's distorted voice filled the cabin. "The hour is almost over. The hunt begins soon." My phone vibrated. 10:42 a.m. 18 minutes left. I pushed myself harder, weaving between rows. The passengers lunged, grabbing, clawing, their smiles splitting wider. I knew then. When the fourth hour ended, something far worse would be waiting. I collapsed into the front galley, gasping, clutching my chest. The passengers froze mid-step, their heads snapping toward me in perfect unison. The air itself seemed to stop. Every sound vanished except for the pounding of my heart. My phone buzzed. 10:59 a.m. 1 minute left. My entire body shook. sweat soaking through my clothes. The backward-headed man stood tall in the aisle. His voice slithered through the silence. "It's almost time." My throat closed. The cabin lights died completely, plunging everything into darkness. I could hear them moving still, their feet, their whispers, circling like predators. Then a single spotlight flickered on, illuminating the center aisle. And standing there, towering above the rest, was something new. Its face was stitched together from dozens of grins. Its eyes glowed red like burning coals. The 4th hour ended. The chaser had arrived. The chaser stepped forward. Each movement made the floor groan, as though the plane itself feared it. The stitched mouth grinned impossibly wide, stretching ear to ear, leaking black fluid. The passengers sank to their knees, bowing their heads in unison. Only I stood trembling, its burning eyes locked onto me. "You," it growled, voice layered with countless tones. "Run!" The rules screamed inside my skull. You must evade the chaser. I spun and bolted down the aisle. The cabin erupted with shrieks. The chaser moved with impossible speed, tearing through rows, its body bending unnaturally to follow. Hands shot out from the kneeling passengers, clawing at me as I stumbled forward. The rules were all I had. I didn't need to fight. I only needed to keep running. The cabin twisted. Aisles stretched longer than they should, looping endlessly, seats repeating like a maze. No matter how far I ran, the chaser's breath burned at my back. I dove over an armrest, scrambling across seats, knocking over passengers who didn't resist. They only stared, only smiled. The chaser's hand slammed down where I'd just been, crushing the seat into splinters. The plane groaned, metal screeching as the walls bent inward. I forced myself down another aisle, gasping. My phone buzzed. When? 24 a.m. 36 minutes until landing. Could I last that long? The chaser roared, a guttural sound that shook the cabin. Passengers screamed, not in fear, but in worship. "Catch him!" they cried. "Catch him!" I shoved forward, adrenaline carrying me. The exit door loomed far ahead, glowing faintly. But I knew it wasn't time yet. I wasn't allowed to leave. Not yet. The cabin warped again. One blink and I was standing at the rear. Another blink and I was back in the middle. The rules made one thing clear. Reality here didn't matter. Only survival did. The chaser lunged, its stitched grin inches from my face. I dropped to the floor, crawling under seats, my breath ragged. Its claws shredded fabric above me, sparks raining down. A passenger's hand shot down, gripping my wrist with inhuman strength. "Join us," he whispered, blood dripping from his smile. I tore free and scrambled forward, heart pounding. My phone buzzed again. 47 a.m. 13 minutes left. The intercom crackled. The captain's voice was almost gleeful. "Soon you will be free, or you will be nothing." The chaser roared, shaking the plane. I wasn't sure which fate was worse. The plane jolted violently, throwing me into the aisle. The lights flickered, plunging everything into red shadows again. The passengers screamed, not in terror, but in anticipation. The chaser towered above me, its stitched mouth opening wider, revealing endless black. It lunged. I rolled aside, crashing into the emergency exit door. My phone buzzed. 1:59 a.m. 1 minute left. The chaser's claws tore through the floor, sparks flying, smoke rising. The captain's voice boomed overhead. "Prepare for landing." The rules came rushing back. As soon as you hear the announcement of landing, push to the exit door and open it. My body moved on instinct. I grabbed the handle, pulling with all my strength. The door blew open with a deafening roar. Beyond it, nothing. No sky, no ground, just a black void, endless and waiting. The chaser shrieked, lunging at me as the void pulled at the cabin. Passengers were sucked from their seats, vanishing into the darkness without resistance. Their screams faded as quickly as they began. The stitched grin was inches from me, its claws reaching. I jumped. The void swallowed me whole, silence crushing every sound. No falling, no floating, just endless black. Then, a voice, soft, whispering. You followed the rules. My eyes opened. I was standing alone in an empty terminal, ticket in hand. The board above me flashed, flight completed. The list of rules lay crumpled at my feet, but the last line was different now. New words scrawled in the same frantic handwriting. If you survived, you must board again. The flights never end. And as the announcement echoed through the empty hall, now boarding gate 7, I realized this wasn't survival. It was only the beginning.